Hello, folks. Welcome to this edition of Prime Day. I'm here with my good friend Jim Fuse, which I didn't spell it with a Z, from Dealcasters. This is going to be a fun show. Thank you guys for waiting on us. We were trying to get some stuff ironed out, but if you guys would do us a favor, you guys can go over to actually to either jeffc.live or dealcasters.live. One of the two should be working, so we will see what happens. But we're here with Michelle Levitt from Heil Sound. This is going to be exciting because we got some really cool mics to go with you. Michelle, how are you doing?
I'm good.
We're just having all sorts of fun tech stuff today. So, anyway.
I'm good.
All right. So Katie says, do I need to watch on Amazon Live? And Katie, I would say yes, because we want you to buy a lot of our products is the thing, is what we're saying. No, but that's what our main thing is, because we're over there. And if you're watching over there, we'd love for you guys to unmute and give us a follow. But right off the bat, Michelle, let's talk about mics, because Jim and I, we know mostly what direction to talk into them. But we are not professional mic people like you are from Heil Sound. And by the way, Heil gave us a ton of products we're going to share with you, so we're very thankful for that. But tell us the difference between mics and what sets Heil apart from other microphones.
So one of the two main types of microphones that you're going to come across when you're shopping for microphones, if you're a podcaster or a streamer, are dynamic or condenser microphones. Mm-hmm. And a condenser microphone is a very sensitive instrument. It is designed to pick up sound in a very, very detailed way, which is great if you have a recording studio in a soundproof space. I do not. I am in my office in Heil Sound. There's the sales manager next to me, and like the chief breaks through the room, and a manufacturing plant beyond that. So what I choose to use is dynamic microphones, which is what we make here at Heil Sound. Dynamic microphones are, they're essentially, if you open one up, they look like a speaker, but in reverse. So that little like center thing of your speaker, that's what a shrunken down version looks like inside this microphone. And what it does is it takes an acoustic signal and turns it into something that a computer can read or your audio interface can read. And it works basically in the opposite way that a speaker does. So they're a little bit different in how they're designed and a little bit different in the applications that you use them for. And you would use a dynamic microphone anywhere where you need, you don't have a soundproof space. Like my backdrop is literally from our trade shows. That's it. Right. That's the only sound treatment I have in this room. And it's really just more for visuals than anything. And you can get away with using these microphones in a variety of spaces that you really can't with a condenser microphone. And so for most people that are recording at home or in a space that's not a real recording studio, these are going to be the types of microphones that you need to be looking for. And that's what we make here at Heil Sound, is all dynamic microphones.
So, what is that? So I know, because, Jim and I have the older Rodecaster Pro. He's got the Rodecaster Pro 2. And I know there's some settings on there. You talked about condenser versus dynamic, but there's also this thing called phantom power, which is a little spooky. So what is phantom power? Why do you need it? And I'm going to showcase one of your mics, which it doesn't need it, but it has a little feature on it that when you turn it on, it kind of gets pretty cool.
Sure. So condenser microphones need a power supply, and it's not like an external power supply like you have with your laptop or anything like that. It's 48 volt phantom power that's delivered through a mixer or an interface, or maybe your computer if you're using a USB mic. We have a microphone called the Fin that is a dynamic microphone, but it uses that phantom power to make it glow. Yes. It's got LED lights inside the grill, and it looks really cool. And if you've ever seen the movie Hunger Games, it was featured in that movie. It wasn't glowing in the movie, but it does glow.
So I have one right here, and I can actually I have it all hooked up so we can actually hear what it sounds like. But I think it's, so the one I'm talking over here is the Heil PR40. Jim, you are on what?
I'm on the PR30.
Okay. And what are you on, Michelle, the 30?
I'm on a 30 also.
Okay. So I want to turn this on. Now, She talked about how in the
like the lady on Hunger Games, just so we know.
I should dress like her.
Yeah.
That's what I should dress. She was kind of some crazy outfit. So one of the things that I went, so it's hot here in Texas. It's freaking hot, and I have fans going. I have some on my Heil. I have some treatment going on it. If I'll turn it off in a little bit, you guys can hear what it sounds like in my windy office. But let me turn on the fin, because it's just a gorgeous microphone. I love it. So let me. Can you guys hear me? Is it coming through now? The fin.
Yep. Yeah.
So isn't that cool? It just sounds really. I just think it's such a cool microphone. I love it. So this is the fin, and the cool thing is, Jim, do you have the other one? Because it doesn't just come in this color. It has this chrome one, and it comes in this blue, and also.
I'm breaking it out of the box.
Okay, let me. I'll pan over to you after I get done talking about it. But this is this is the blue one. They have a red one and have a white lights. Now, they're different microphones. They don't change, so you get the blue or you get the red or you get the white. And the same thing with the matte black, which is the red one reminds me of Darth Vader. But go ahead. I'm going to switch over to you, Jim, and you can showcase that one.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go with the overhead. So what I love about what Heil has done, so yes, Michelle, I'm complimenting you, right? You get a little thank you card with a sticker, but this has this really nice carrying case. And then you can see they've got all the different styles they have. But yeah, I'm with you, Jeff. I feel like I'm in Star Wars. If Mike Altman is watching, he's going to be jealous. Yes. But this is just such a cool looking microphone. I mean, look at those colors. And
when it lights up, it'll be awesome. I love the matte black on it. I think that's cool.
It's very heavy, and I, it's solid. And so that's the thing too. I'm using the Heil boom arm, and I can't believe how solid it is. I mean, this PR30 is not a light microphone, and it's like, the boom arm's like, is that all you got? Is that all you got? And so I'm just, Michelle, I know you just sent us to me recently, but I'm very impressed. And so I'm loving the boom arm. I'm loving these really kind of these retro looking microphones. In fact, if I go like this, right, we can do the cool thing where, right, you can see XLR.
Yes.
And we get that. I mean, that is really cool. So yeah, no, this is neat. I can't wait. Now it's like I got to get extra boom arms so I can plug all these mics into my Rodecaster Pro and look really weird.
So Michelle, can you talk a little bit about that as well? The difference between the XLR connections and the USB mics, because some have both. I mean, that sometimes they advertise that they have both of these, and some are just USB, some are just XLR, like the Fin and I think all the mics we've been shown to are all XLR mics. What is the difference, and what are the pros and cons of those?
Yeah, USB mics can plug straight into your computer. They're typically not quite the same quality as professional microphones. So all the microphones we make are professional quality microphones. They're used in radio stations, Sirius XM. They're used on live sound stages and in recording studios. So these are all going to be pro level products that you can easily use at home. But that does mean you will have to have some sort of audio interface or a mixer to be able to connect them into your computer. And then from there, you can record into a DAW just like you would a USB mic. That's really the only difference is those connection types. But the 3-pin XLR is what all the pros use for their connection.
They're in the music studios and stuff too. So we've got some of our friends up here. Kirk Nugent says, "Look at this crew." Yes, we're all he goes, Prime Day brings out everybody. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, Kirk, but thank you for watching. Chris wants one. So that's what happens, buddy, when you go to Europe. It's just that's just the way it breaks. But yeah, so
because I think a European vacation with Chevy Chase, and so
he kind of reminds me a little bit of that. So yeah, he even said, "Look what happens when he goes to Europe." So what are you doing watching Prime? Maybe he'll buy a mic. We'll see. So we talked about USBs versus XLR, and what are some interfaces? Like, some people don't really need to get like a Rodecaster Pro 2 or something like that. What are some interfaces if, let's say, they've fallen in love with the Fin, they love the way it looks, they want one, it'll look cool on their podcast or on Amazon? How do they not want to have to get a big, huge soundboard, but what are some easy ways to get that interface into the computer? Do you know, Michelle?
Yeah, so Focusrite makes some great options. They make some really simple options. That's actually what I'm using today. You can use a mixer if you are interested in adjusting EQ settings externally from your DAW. There are a lot of products out there that you can use. Really, you're just looking for a 3-pin XLR to a USB or maybe a USB-C connection, depending on what kind of computer you're using. And really, it's just about learning to use your microphone so that whatever interface you're using, you're getting the best audio.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about, like over here, let me go full screen here. I don't think that I really need a pop filter on the PR40 because it's got one that's built in. So talk about, and I believe the Fin has some of that stuff inside of it as well. So can you talk a little bit about like sibilance and pops and how do you cut that down and how Heil mic handles that?
Yeah, so all of our microphones do have some sort of internal pop screen in them. Most dynamic microphones do, but the real key to making sure that you're not going to be, popping peas and getting a lot of noise into your microphone is to really not talk straight into the mic. So you'll notice mine is sort of angled across my mouth. That's so when I'm speaking into it, I'm not like blasting the microphone with poofs of air, because then it's going to pick that up almost like a drum head. And like even with the Fin, talking straight into it, like just angle it just a little bit more, you'll get more of those lights anyway.
Yeah.
So it's going to look great and it'll get rid of those plosives. Now if you're super bad at making plosive sounds with your mouth, then maybe a pop screen is good for you. The other thing that will go miles in making sure that you're not getting those sounds is having some way to monitor your audio, whether it's headphones or monitor speakers or even some sort of earbud will work. You want to make sure you can hear yourself. So if you are talking directly into that microphone and it's not sounding good, you can make the adjustments that you need to make sure that you're not causing your audio to sound bad.
Very cool. So Jim mentioned earlier the Heil boom arm, and so I have it. Hear that on? I'm gonna go. That I was so glad when Michelle sent me, and so this one is the Heil boom arm, and you hear there's nothing there. So I was very excited when she sent that because it holds it in place. You can move it out of the way when you don't need it. I think the things, and Jim, you can answer this as well. I think the biggest thing when it comes to creating content is having a spot where everything's always set up. What do you think?
Definitely is huge. I mean, that's one of the things by having a studio just like you do, even though we got to get you some air conditioning to help.
That's right.
It makes it really easy, right? I've got everything sitting in front of me. So it gets you out of the excuse of, I've got to move things around, set things up. And so having your microphone ready to go, even having your settings that, when I go live, everything, works. And going back to, before I got this Rodecaster Pro 2, I was using the Focusrite. In fact, now I use it on my laptop because it is portable. I wouldn't say that for the Rodecaster Pro 2, so that's something to consider as well. But I did have a question for Michelle because I have the shock mount, and I wasn't sure if I can actually use it with the PR30. Maybe I didn't follow directions and I'm supposed to unscrew something to do that. But that was something too, that this is very solid. I mean, when you feel the weight of all this stuff, you're just amazed that this boom arm can hold it all up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things we worked really hard with this boom arm, and it's got a few really neat features, and one of them is this channel cover here. So it has an actual cover. So you run the mic cable down this, and then you just secure this cover, and then everything looks all nice and neat, and your cable stays right where it is. And as a matter of fact, when I move microphones in and out, like if I want to use different ones, I actually leave all of this stuff connected and I just pick up the whole boom arm, move it out, plug in the new microphone from the boom arm. And I have several of them around my office, so I can just sort of like pop them in and out, and I take them to trade shows that way. And it makes for me setting things up really easy, and the look is always really good. And if you've ever had to use a boom arm like Jeff's, you know that they can create a lot of noise,
Yeah.
Noise that even your shock mount can't get rid of. And so one of the things the shock mount does is it's got all these like kind of rubber bands. For ladies, it feels like the ones you use in your hair when you were a kid. And what that does is it just takes any vibrations that would be from the table, from the boom arm, from you touching things, just any vibrations at all. And it sends those waves of energy through these rubber bands instead of into your microphone. It's something that like professional broadcasters have used for a long time. It was maybe because their boom arms were so bad for so long.
But you wouldn't. But the Fin like really doesn't have. I mean, because it's a kind of a retro mic. It doesn't need like a shock mount because it's so heavy and solid, right? Am I correct in that?
Yeah, most of these, you can get away with not using a shock mount. It kind of depends on your microphone technique. If you're a little new to this and you're not used to using a microphone, and maybe you knock your microphone or your boom arm every once in a while, it's probably a really good idea to do that. The other thing too is, if you're working off of a budget, you can always order your microphone and your boom arm, skip the shock mount initially, and then if you feel like you need it later on, it's something you can add to your setup.
And plus, they just look cool because I like the one on the.
They do.
Do you hear that though? I gotta replace that one. It's bad.
WD-40.
Yeah, some WD-40. But I do like that channel on that arm. That's really, really cool. I wonder if you guys can see it. So you can't even see the cords that are inside of here. It just goes on. And, when you have tech like Jim and I do, and Michelle as well, having some sort of cable management becomes really, really important with all the stuff that goes around. The question I did want to ask, so Jim unboxed the Fin, the matte one, and the with the red lights. So mine came, the chrome one came in this gorgeous. Let me pull it up here. This gorgeous case. So is it just for the chromes that this one comes in like this? Because it's got this little. It felt like I was opening jewelry. So.
I know. No, that is actually our old packaging. We're moving to the new boxes with the carrying cases because most people take their microphones out of a carrying case, put them on a boom arm.
Right.
And then you have this case that you might or might not use. And we have had instances where people just ship them back to us. Like, we didn't want to throw this away. Here, take it back.
I liked it. I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
So.
And you can buy the carrying cases separately if you're really interested in that. But if you're going to take it out of its box and put it on a boom arm, there's really no point in it. And so it was one of those things that as we're changing our packaging for the rest of the Pro division, you might see some items that will come to you in old packaging and some in the new black boxes like Jim had.
Okay.
And all of our stuff is transitioning to those black boxes and the carrying cases.
So get them while they're hot, folks, if you want one. Really quickly, you talked about the importance of monitoring sound while you're to get your mic technique down and all that stuff. So I've got little earbuds in my ear because I didn't put the Mickey Mouse ears on. But you guys have, and I got to talk about this. And I think Jim, you have some too. Is the Heil's the headphones. It's a Pro Set 3 is what it is. And let me pull these up here. Dun, dun, dun. Where is it? Is it this one? Yeah. So I really like these headphones because I use them. So I do a lot of podcast editing, and these are super lightweight. And I'll tell you, Michelle, at first I was like, because I wasn't a big fan of on-ear headphones, but I forget that these are on my head. They're that light, and they sound so good. I've kind of fallen in love with these, and I probably am never going to give them back to you. So these are, I don't know if you want old earphones, by the way, anyway, but they are super comfortable. So can you talk about these? Because this phase shift here on the side of it, where you can turn this phase on or off, I want you to talk about that and why it's important. I noticed, like, for a long podcasting session that I was doing, that it kind of helped, like, give my ears a break or something. I don't know what it does. I read some reviews and they said to try it. I'm like, okay, I could tell there was a difference in the sound, but what is it actually doing?
So what it does is it moves the audio signal from ear to ear. It's
Okay.
one of those things that when you first flip it on, you go, oh, that's kind of strange. And then within a few seconds, you don't even notice it. So if you're doing a lot of podcast editing, or say you're a producer mixing, albums at home or your own stuff, these are a great tool. This is a really pro level feature in these headphones, and it will really reduce that listening fatigue. So if you're wearing headphones for 5, 6, 8 hours a day, this can really help cut down on that, because I don't know if you've worn headphones for that many hours at a time. I have, and it can be just sort of like draining to your brain to sort of
Right.
assault it with noise that close like that. And while you have that overhead shot, I want to show you something.
Okay.
So I want you to grab the top of the headband just above those left and right things.
Right here. Yeah.
Don't be afraid.
This right here.
So grab both sides of the headphone, the
Okay.
top band.
Okay.
Okay. And now I want you to just bend it upright.
Like this?
You're not going to break it. Yes.
Ah!
That is how you adjust the ear tension. There's a metal band inside there.
That makes me nervous.
And so you can adjust the tension. So flex it a little bit, and it'll
yeah.
spread that space out. And so you can really fit it to your head.
So you're saying I have a large melon is what you're saying, that I needed to do that. You're like, that's why, Jeff, you're getting headaches. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Right.
Well, so the other cool thing is, I don't think I have them right here with me, is kudos to Heil for this, but they gave you 3 different chords for this thing, and they twist lock and come in and out. But there's 3 different chords. You have this kind of twisty chord, but then you have 2 other long chords for plugging into your iPhone or some other places. But I really that made me happy, because I will run over chords with my chair. I'll do bad things to them, and that's really cool that you guys did that. So
I've got
the twist lock, you just pull it out and you swap out.
Yeah.
And if you really break or lose a lot of them, we sell those separately.
Okay, cool. Oh, and it also comes with the, just the little things, like not having to go find an adapter. It's just really cool for that kind of stuff. What are you gonna say, Jim? I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, I have the 3 if you wanted me to.
Oh yeah. Go over. I'll go over to you.
Okay, so I'll go with my overhead book. So yeah, you can see, like you said, this has got the nice twisty, which you need for some interfaces, and then you've got this one as well, and third one. So yeah, that's great to have extra cords, because I can never have enough cords, because I'm sure, like you said, Jeff, you either run them over or you forget where you put them. So it's always good to have extra cords. Well, yeah, this is very light, so I can actually do the same thing, right? I'm bending it, crushing your head.
So most headphones you can't. I'm glad when the people who make them tell you to do that, then you're like, okay, it's safe. But I wasn't gonna do that on my own. So we've got some great people who are watching with us right now. We've got Jonathan Gaby says he loves his Heil PR40. Yeah, I still think it's like the gold standard kind of. I really love that, and a lot of podcasters use it. You see them when they're doing their their YouTube live shows. Chris says you always provide a lot of shock, Jim. So I'm not sure. I'll just leave that there. And Jonathan goes, "Where's the link to WD-40 for Amazon?" Yeah, they're provided. And Katie, thank you you can see us now. I'm glad you were able to do it. And she also adores her Heil PR40. Thank you, Katie. Yeah, a lot of people. And yeah, so the phase sound is really, really cool. That's something you'll get in every headphone. So, all right, Jim, what am I missing? What am I forgetting here? Because we got a lot of stuff to go over.
Well, we've hit on we've hit about the shock mount. We've hit about the boom arm, the headphones. We talked about the really cool retro looking mics, fins. So we still got a few others.
Yeah, let me go back to I want to talk about the PR40, because people are saying how much they love it, and I think that is something we need to talk about. Let me do this, and I think now we are back to the PR40. Does that sound good? Is it too boomy, Michelle?
That's great.
Now, so here, I just want to let you guys know, because a lot of people don't have perfect sound places. Like I got fans and air conditioning, so I'm going to turn off all the compression and stuff that I'm going through my Rodecaster, and let you guys hear what this sounds like, because I think it does a great job just without it. So let me go over here and go to my processing. I'm going to turn off everything. All right. So this is me without any. This is straight out of the box. A Heil PR40. So how does that sound? Pretty good, right?
So,
It's
yeah.
yeah.
She likes
It sounds
better.
really good. You know, it sounds like you when I see you in person.
Well, we don't want that. That's why I turn on the stuff. So, yeah, it does. It does a really great job of faithfully making it sound it. You know, podcasters and people, we like to have that kind of radio voice. But
sure,
the cool thing is now, I'm gonna go here back to the full screen. The thing about this is, I was lucky enough to Michelle sent me this black and gold, and these are kind of hard to find, I guess, was Michelle was saying. But they do have. What was your most popular one that you said you the color you sell, Michelle? You told me.
The original champagne one.
Okay.
Did I send you one of those?
Yes, I think you sent me every color they have. So there's the. And then the all black one, I think, is the one that you sent as well.
Yeah.
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 So
that one looks great.
Yeah, they all look good, but it's just kind of preference. They all sound the same. But
yeah,
I do want to make it clear, I do have the shock mount on this one, and I also have this like, I don't need it. It just looked cool. A pop filter, but that's just a aftermarket kind of thing. So anyway.
Yeah, and Jonathan was asking about the pop filters in the chat. And so the deal with the pop filters is, if you're going to want to have one. There's not a huge difference between the pop filter and the foam windscreen. It's more of a choice and aesthetic. Do you want to see your microphone, or do you care if it has the big windscreen over it? The pop filter maybe just has a little like slicker of a look. Acoustically, there's no difference.
Okay. Some people, in the old days, they used to just wrap it with pantyhose or something. I remember they would make stuff with.
You could definitely make one like that. It's not going to quite have that same effect as like one of the real ones, but you know, if you're trying to decide if you wanted to have one, that would be a good little test and be like, oh yeah, I am kind of plosive.
I do find
it was funny. The first show,
there's a warning label. I find that funny. So I almost like, did you guys have a problem where people didn't realize where they needed to talk in the microphone? So you had to give them a warning label. It's kind of like, caution, coffee is hot. Don't pour it on yourself.
Yes.
Right.
Well, there are a lot of microphones that are side address that sort of look like these. And when we first introduced these microphones onto the market in the early 2000s, when I started working for Heil Sound, we had a lot of people call. They would get the microphone and they would call us and they would say, this sounds terrible. And it was because they were talking into the side of it instead of the end of it. Because what these microphones are designed to do is to lose audio out of the side of it. And that's a good thing, because you want it to isolate the sound right in front of the microphone. That's how it doesn't pick up like your air conditioner kicking on and off, or, you know, the sales manager in the next room talking on the phone, or, you know, whatever sounds that you have. You know, during the pandemic, I swear my neighbor mowed his grass like 5 times a week because he was so bored. Right. So whatever noise is going on outside of your recording environment, these microphones are designed to not pick that up. But that does mean you need to pay careful attention to your microphone placement and your microphone technique. And, you know, a pop screen is actually a really good way to train somebody to use a microphone, to have them like put their chin on it or put their nose on it, depending on how they have their microphone angled, to really teach them to stay close to their microphone. We get a lot of people call and will say like, I can't get enough gain out of a Focusrite to make this work. Do I need a preamp? No, you don't. I can guarantee you're probably sitting too far away from your microphone. If you're using it about 2 finger widths away, which is what dynamic microphones are designed to be used as, you're going to get plenty of gain out of something as simple as a Generation 1 Focusrite, which is actually what I'm using now. No extra preamps or anything, just first gen Focusrite.
Yeah, I think for what I'm using on the Rodecaster is like, it's at 33 is the gain that I have it set at. So I thought that was We have a question over on Amazon Live. Zach says, how does the PR40 compare to the Electro Voice RE20? Do you know?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes. So the RE20 is kind of the grandfather of broadcast radio. And that microphone has been around for a long time. If you have ever used that microphone un-EQ'd, it is a little on the tinny side and a little thin, and it doesn't have a lot of low end. So typically with an RE20, you're going to need some sort of extra processing, a lot of extra EQ. Jeff just showed you what our microphones sound like un-EQ'd. My microphone has no EQ on it. I never use EQ or any sort of processing on my microphone because I want you to hear what our products sound like out of the box when you plug them in. And I tell a lot of people too, if you've been using another type of microphone and you have EQ presets, turn all those off and start over, because what worked for your RE20 or another brand will probably not be the same sort of settings for a PR40 or a PR30.
So Deb asked, she needs a link. Well, if you go to dealcasters.live or jeffc.live, they are right there for you, Deb. So thank you for asking for that.
I did give her one in the chat. Okay. She's actually watching on
Facebook.
One of the other tubes.
Yeah, one of the other tubes. So that was the question, and so I'll go back later too, because I want to have people hear the fin without any processing on it as well, because it is I just am so impressed with how good it looks and how good it sounds too. So we'll do that. So let's talk some of these handheld microphones, because I even messaged Michelle earlier, like, I don't know anything about these because I don't sing, or I don't know what to do with them. And so, Jim, do you have one ready to show, or what are you waiting for over there?
You want to go with the 22 or the 37?
Do the 30. Do the 37. I'll do the 22. I'll get that ready. So I'm gonna go to you.
Oh, is it? Is the 20? Is this one? I don't know that the 37's handheld. Is it?
Michelle? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, it's just the way I got to pull. Oh, I see it. It's got a pop filter after all this talk of no pop filters. Now we have one.
Yeah, the handheld mics come with the windscreen. Depending on the singer, if it's used for, live sound vocals, that can be something that's really critical.
So got to put my filter on here, so you.
Oh, you don't have to do that.
Well, it just wouldn't feel right without it. But yeah, I mean, it's I'm so used to having, and it's got, so you've got you can mount this one as well. It is also XLR. It's a lot lighter, maybe because it's handheld, than I noticed than, say, the 30 and the 40. And I guess is that intentional?
Yeah. And it is actually, that's our biggest and heaviest handheld microphone that we make. So that's as much weight as you're going to find in a handheld microphone, because it's a really big handheld microphone. But there's a reason for that. And that microphone was a nominee for a tech award this year at the NAMM show, which is a huge honor. And we are incredibly grateful for, the opportunity to showcase this microphone in that way. And it's an incredible microphone that's, being used by Grammy award-winning singers. And if you have a situation where you need to, travel to do a live stream or a podcast, this is a great option because it has a small footprint. And the other thing too is it's designed to be held in your hand. So you don't necessarily need to travel with a boom arm and a shock mount and all of that stuff. You can just have, something basic. You could even use a Zoom recorder, and that records your podcast on the go, and that can be your entire setup.
So would you consider this be your high-end handheld? Is this the
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have two that are sort of considered our high-end handheld microphones, the PR35 and the PR37. And the 37 is sort of our new and improved handheld microphone, and we tested it out in some very brutal conditions, and it's been performing like a champ.
Okay, cool. So really quickly, Jonathan has this question. He goes, I've heard that the PR40, we're going back to the PR40, can be used for really great vocal singing microphone. Is that true?
Absolutely. I was just talking to the band Royal Thunder, and they were using it in the studio to record vocals. on their female singer. And it was just her particular voice. It really, really sounded good for her. And so, yeah, you can definitely use these on vocals for singing. So if you're somebody that's maybe doing a podcast and you also are wanting to record your singing voice, it can be fantastic.
Cool. Very cool. So I'm going to go and, first of all, get this off there. This is so you just did what? The PR37? Which one was it? Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the 22 UT, and I have not taken this out. So why don't you, while I kind of talk about this, tell us about the difference between the mic we just saw and this one. So this is the 22 UT. And what does UT stand for, by the way?
Utility.
Oh, okay.
So when we first introduced the PR22, it came with extra windscreens and this big carrying case, and people really wanted a less expensive version of this. And so we made this sort of like utility packaging, which eventually all of our products have sort of moved towards this, because most people, if it's a live sound situation, they, take this out of the box, they put it in that carrying bag, and then they chuck it in their road case and they go. And so all the extra packaging was just not really necessary for the customer. And so we have this fabulous microphone. This is, again, being used by Grammy Award-winning singers. And it's a phenomenal mic if you, again, need a budget option for a handheld microphone. And this, you could really, really get a lot of bang for your buck for this microphone. You could get two of them really for the price of one other microphone. So, a lot of people think that they can't, afford these pro quality microphones when you're getting started, and that's really not true. There's, there's a lot of great options at a very reasonable price.
Very cool. Well, we'll have Jim talk. Well, first of all, I want to show you guys what the Fin sounds like without, because one of the things about Heil is that they, like Michelle said, they sound great out of the box. And you could use this mic to like mic instruments, anything that you need it to. Like if you had a garage band and you wanted to start, your kids off, getting them started, you can get them all these microphones, not kill yourself budget-wise. And okay.
Yeah,
cool.
that microphone is great on guitar cabinets. It's great on snare drums, and it's great on cymbals. So yeah, if your kid has a garage band, these microphones are perfect for that, and they're very durable, and they can, use them to record and use them on a live sound stage. So if your kid is telling you they need 2 sets of microphones, that's simply not true.
So this is
a question. Yeah, a question too that I have, because I've one thing I've noticed is all your microphones are XLR, which is what I typically use. Do you guys do USB microphones, or do you kind of like try to steer people like you really need to get into the interface world? And does it really make a big difference in the quality of your sound when you go XLR versus USB?
So that's a great question. One we get a lot. We do not currently have a USB mic. We've worked toward that for many years, but it's one of those things that we haven't really been able to achieve the same quality of sound. And we feel that people would ultimately be very disappointed that a PR40 doesn't sound like a PR40. And one of the things that happens with those USB connections, and I'm sure anybody that's ever used one of those microphones that's both XLR and USB has experienced this, the XLR sounds much, much better than the USB. And it's just a matter of like it having to compress that signal more for the USB. Whereas when you're running it through a mixer or an audio interface, that is going to have external sound cards that help process that audio sort of back and forth in a way that keeps the signal as strong as possible.
very cool.
Yeah.
So I'm back on the Fin. Okay. Now I do have some compression because I was getting a lot of air conditioner, but I'm going to turn that off, and you guys can hear what it sounds out of the box. Oops. Okay, this is the Fin microphone right out of the box. So does it sound good? Do I have my level sounding good? Good, Michelle?
You sound like you're on the Hunger Games.
I'm on the what? The Hunger Games. Yes. You're going to be cold, Jim, really quickly. So what's what will happen?
Yeah, I can just barely hear that fan. Just barely.
There's a fan and an air conditioner. There's like 2 air conditioners and a fan. That's how hot it is, folks. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
But so it's just, I think it sounds great. You guys can be the judge, but if you're doing like a YouTube show, I keep thinking about Chad. He has that kind of retro look Jim, this would be a
Yeah.
perfect mic for him because of just how it looks, and he could do whatever. So I'm gonna switch over because you guys have been talking on the Heil PR30, and I have one of those set up too. But I'm gonna unplug it and plug in this handheld. So you guys talk while I get everything situated. All right, will that work?
Okay.
Yeah.
So Michelle, what are you guys working on? Are you coming out with some new microphones? Any big big things coming out soon?
We are working on a couple different things right now that I can't talk about. But yeah, we're always working on things here, and always trying to improve what we have. So, something like the RPR 35 microphone, which was the handheld version before the 37, was sort of the jumping off point. And we like to just keep pushing ourselves to make our current microphones better in any way that we can. So, if we have any sort of issues once they hit the road in mass productions, sort of capacity, we always go back to the drawing board and sort of fix those. We're always kind of just working and working and working to make sure our product line has the absolute best products for people. And the 30 has been a mainstay in our line almost from the beginning. I think it was like the second or third microphone we introduced, and it's really my choice when I'm podcasting. I'm either using this or PR37 these days. It sounds the most like me. My goal when I'm doing any sort of voiceover recording or podcasting is I want people to recognize my voice. So if they meet me at a podcasting event, it's not like, oh, wow, you don't sound anything like what you sound like in recordings, because it would make it seem like I was being unfaithful to like my own natural audio, and for me that's very important. I think of it as like, you see like the real estate person's billboard, but the picture is like 10 years old, and then you meet the person in
Right.
person, and you're like, oh, that's not you. Like,
Right.
I don't want to have that disconnect when people meet me and it's like, oh, you don't sound anything like what I thought you were going to sound like.
Yeah. Now, do you guys have wireless microphones? Because I know a lot of people are getting into where they want to have wireless, especially if they're creating content for TikTok because they're using their phone. Have you
Right.
guys? Are you moving into that space at all?
So we make wireless capsules for handheld devices that are used usually in like a live sound setting. But we do not make any sort of like smartphone devices or anything like that. We've sort of steered away from products like that just because we're really more of an analog company, and it would essentially be like a whole second business for us. Our support staff is very analog based here, so they don't really have the capacity for like firmware updates. I can't imagine like, the
Right.
people who are out there like soldering stuff is like, you want me to do what? No.
All right, so this I think I have my levels about right. Does that sound good? This is what did we say it was? The PR22 UT. And this
Yeah,
doesn't
that
have
sounds
any
really good.
doesn't have any compression on it. So Chris actually said when I was on the fin, he thought I sounded better on the fin in his opinion, but he likes the riverboat sound. Yeah, I can see that. But yeah, I mean, this would be a great, because I'm always thinking about mobile stuff, mobile live, being able to throw this in a kit and go in and like to podcast movements coming up. Michelle's going to be there, I'm sure. You're going to be at podcast movement.
Mm-hmm.
Jim's
Yeah.
going to be
We'll
there.
be there.
So this would be great for like if you're walking around, or no, I guess you can't walk around, but if you had it like hooked up to a Focusrite or something, an interface where you could capture some sounds for recording a podcast. This is a great one. It's really light. It's pretty small. I think it's pretty cool.
I have seen some interfaces though, Jeff, that will allow you to plug the XLR into a phone. So
Mm-hmm.
that might be something that
That
could
would be
work.
cool, like for an iPad. Like I'd take my iPad Pro, and I could go and you could, because there's a lot of cool mixing stuff that you can do with an iPad. So, yeah, this is really nice little microphone.
We had talked as well, right? And you've kind of hit on this, and this is for some of the people that maybe have the Rodecaster, 1 or 2. Is to your point, is like you don't need to do anything to this microphone when you plug it into these interfaces, and that's part of the challenge I have, because I did this kind of at the last minute. Is you just plug it in and let the microphone do its own thing, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of a lot of other microphones where you need to use processing and EQ. You really don't. And as a matter of fact, when interfaces like, a Rodecaster or the second one that they just introduced, they come with a lot of presets. And so I would encourage you to maybe turn off all the presets and just hear what the microphone sounds like first. It's like when you're cooking and you're like, well, here's a little bit of salt. Like if you put way too much salt on it, it's going to taste really bad. So try it with nothing on it first, and then see what you want to do from there. Maybe you want a little more low end and warmth, then you can, adjust that low end and turn that up and get a little more of that traditional broadcast sound that you're looking for. Or maybe it sounds a little nasally and you want to turn down your highs so it doesn't have that nasal sound. Or maybe your voice naturally sounds like that and you don't want it to sound like that. So you can adjust those EQ settings too to sort of tailor it to how you want to sound and maybe not necessarily how you do sound.
Awesome. So as we kind of wrap things up, I mean, I could talk about this stuff for a long time, but we do have some comments over on Amazon. Zach, I will make sure that Michelle gets your contact information because I know she's always looking to connect with people like you. And Phil knows Smart Home Tech is here. He goes, "Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to you. It's Prime, like somebody said earlier. Prime Day Kirk said Prime Day brings everybody out. So that's what's happening." Michelle, as we kind of wrap up, can you tell, there's a reason why Heil is in big letters behind you. Can you tell a little bit of the history and why that name is like famous for, like, as soon as a mic comes out, if it has Heil's name on it, people buy it and they do it for a reason. I'm going to go ahead, I want to plug in the PR37 too, so people can have that. And if you guys want to hear something again, like to compare something against something else, or let us know in the comments on Amazon Live, wherever you're watching from. Let us know, and we will try to make that happen. So anyway, take it away, Michelle. I'll get ready.
Yeah, so Heil Sound has been around for over 55 years. We started out as one of the first music stores where you could go in and buy a product right off the shelf. So we carried more than one version of, say, a Fender guitar. And so people like Jimi Hendrix would come to our store so they could try out guitars and buy a few and go on tour. And at this time, we were located in Marissa, Illinois, which is just down the road from where we are now. And they would literally fly their planes into cornfields by the store and come in and shop for these products. And the story goes that the Grateful Dead came to St. Louis, but en route, their entire PA and their sound guy was confiscated by the DEA. And when they got to St. Louis, they needed a sound system, and Heil Sound had sound equipment. And they called and they said, "How fast can you get as much sound equipment as you can over here?" And Bob packed up everything he had and took it over to the Fox Theater in St. Louis. And that was kind of the birth of the pro audio business. And Bob started making large PAs for people like the Grateful Dead and the Who. He did sound for ZZ Top when they were an opening band and nobody had any beards. So the company's really sort of evolved in this interesting sort of way over the years. And in the early 2000s, we started making microphones. And one of the reasons that our founder, Bob Heil, said that he wanted to make microphones was because there hadn't been a lot of change in live sound microphones in some time. And he wanted to make a large diaphragm dynamic mic that would have a nice, full, warm, natural sound. And so all of our microphones still exhibit that same quality today. And we are on new ownership at this point. However, it's a second generation business. My husband, Ash Levitt, and his business partner, Steve Warford, are now the owners. Bob is still involved. He's 81 years old, and he is very enthusiastic about amateur radio these days, which is a hobby of his and another division to our company. So yeah, that's sort of the short version. If you want the long version or some of the more interesting stories, we did do a podcast for a 50th anniversary, and it's called 50 Years of Maximum Rock and Roll with Bob Heil. I highly recommend it. I was the producer and editor for that show, and it was a labor of love. It was not one of the easiest podcasts that I have ever produced, but it was so fascinating. You hear stories of Bob doing front of house for Jimi Hendrix when the front of house station was at the edge of the stage. And Bob was really kind of like a ham radio and playing the organ kind of nerdy guy, and he had no idea who Jimi Hendrix was. And the next thing he knew, the guy in front of him had set his guitar on fire. So it's just crazy stories like that. And it was just, it was honestly one of the most fun shows to edit, even though it took the longest of any show I've ever worked on. But it's just really incredible to be able to hear Bob Heil tell his stories with his microphones, sort of in his own voice.
That's really cool. That is really
Wow.
So this is the PR37. So with nothing on, no compression, no anything. So what do you guys think about this? This is like the high-end handheld here. So I feel special. Great. I should start singing Donkashane or something, but I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But
that gives you another option, right? Because now you can kind of hold your microphone, right, Jeff? Oh,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
As opposed to, having it on a boom arm. And Michelle, I remember when we talked before too, I thought it was a really interesting story about how there's like this gap in the ham radio operators. We were talking about like, it's like all these older folks, and then it's like there's a gap, and then the younger people are starting to get into the ham radio.
Yeah, it's a very sort of like, DIY space, and it's very, very tech heavy. You do have to be licensed by the FCC to get into the hobby. So there is some testing required. It's not like a podcast where you can just record and, put stuff out there. It's very regulated.
Yeah, my uncle was one, and they're hardcore. Those guys are hardcore. It was cool.
Yeah.
He had all this set up. Here's a great question from Jonathan. He goes, has Heil been, or would you want to work with Rode to produce a preset for the Rodecaster Pro 1 or Rodecaster Pro 2?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We have worked with other companies that make, there's software in the pro audio industry that sort of does the same thing. And we've worked with guitar amplifier companies and things like that to sort of create presets that mimic the sound of our product, or that can sort of give you those presets. But like I said, one of the benefits to our microphones is you really don't need a lot of that.
Right. So,
of course, we'd be willing to work with Rode and do that. They do make their own microphones, so we're kind of a competitor.
so
they might not be interested.
That's why they're like, yeah, whatever. They can hit just the normal dynamic mic. So I know you, because you get all the, I'm going to try to think of questions like I know you get asked at trade shows and stuff as we kind of wrap this up. So when somebody comes to you and says, hey, I'm just starting podcasting, because I know you'll get this at Podcast Movement. I'm just starting podcasting. What mic should I start with? What's the bare minimums that I need?
That's a really sort of individual question. A lot of people start with the microphone that they want to sound like. Like Pat Flynn, when he was getting started, bought a PR40, and that's been his microphone. I think I sent him a new microphone just like a few years ago. He'd been using the same one the whole time, and I was like, have you ever cleaned it? Because,
That's right.
I'm like, really? The whole time? Same mic. Okay. But yeah, you can definitely start with, whatever sound you want. I would say to people when getting started, it's not as much about which microphone you're using, but how you're using it, making sure that you're buying the right microphone for the right environment. Don't buy a condenser microphone if you're going to be recording in your kitchen. You're going to hear everything, and it's not the microphone's fault. You've bought a pair of stilettos and tried to run a marathon in them. Okay, they're both shoes.
Jim
they
has
both
done
have
that.
completely different functions. So I think it's more about using the right kind of microphone in the right kind of application, listening to yourself to make sure you're using your microphone properly. And then practice. I can't say that enough. And I used to have my podcast clients. I worked with clients that were all business owners who were trying to do podcasts for marketing purposes. Mm-hmm. So you'd have CEOs and doctors and all these people that have never even used a microphone. And so if they wanted to have a meeting with me, I made them do it on the microphone. So they had to practice using a mic. I mean, now you can, get on Zoom and call grandma. Just practice, practice being on microphone, getting used to yourself, hearing yourself, talking, record practice sessions, and don't be afraid to throw content away. Us professionals, we do it all the time. Like, that was no good. Out of here. Yeah. So, redo is fine. Practice and redo. And yeah, buy whatever you can afford, but make sure you're using it the right way and make sure you buy the right kind of microphone for your application.
So wouldn't you? So I got a PR40 because of Pat Flynn, by the way, when I first started. But don't you think your voice, the mic you get depends on your voice? Like, or does it? Do you believe that's true, or do you think that no, any mic you get the one you can make it sound the best you can, or is it all personal preference?
I mean, you can EQ and process a microphone to sound like just about anything. I mean, really, unless you're using just a really poor quality microphone, any good professional microphone can be EQ'd and manipulated. If you want to find a microphone that you don't have to do a lot to, or that allows you more room to play, then you try to find one that sounds best for your voice. You won't see me using a PR40 very often because it just doesn't sound that great for my voice. It's a little too bassy for me, but a lot of guys really like it. They actually, a lot of Pat Flynn is one that says it makes me sound better than I sound in real life. I don't know that that's true, but it can enhance certain features. I like a PR30 because it's got a very sort of natural, what I call like a modern podcasting sound. It's not as processed. It's not as sports broadcaster, radio station sort of sounding. And then I use the 37 a lot. I really love that microphone. It sounds just like me, which is incredible. There are not a lot of microphones on the market that are that transparent in how they sound. So yeah, it's all individual differences. And of course your budget matters. If you're looking for a budget microphone that you can continue to use, even when you've upgraded everything else, the 22 is a fantastic option. It's really going to give you that budget option, but at a pro level product that really is going to last.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think you bring up a great point, Michelle. I think what a lot of people forget when they're getting a microphone, it's not a cost, it's an investment. And if you invest in a good microphone, it's going to last you for years. And so you sit there like, oh, this microphone is $200-$300. Well, if it lasts you for years, like you said, Pat Flynn had his first one for, years. It really didn't cost him that much for as much use as he got out of it. And so I think that's where sometimes, especially when we're talking about tech, don't always think about what you're spending on it, but what is it going to do for you as a creator or a podcast or whatever? What's your return on investment by getting good, because audio is the most important thing when it comes to video. And I think that's what people forget. They'll forgive bad video, but they will not forgive bad audio.
Totally.
Yeah. And if people can't understand you, that's a real problem.
So I want another shout out over on Amazon Live. Shannon Hernandez says, yes, practice. He's a Mr. Radio guy, so he knows what he's talking about. He's helped me out a lot throughout the years and with microphones. But you're right, Jim. I think that I'll upgrade cameras more and other stuff. And then once you find a microphone that works and sounds great and like the fin looks great, I mean, they all look great, but you gotta, this just looks cool. I think that, once you get it, you stick with it until it starts smelling bad. Jonathan says he got a PR40 because of Cliff Ravenscraft and Michael Hyatt. Yes, they both use them, and those other guys who, Cliff sold a lot of those microphones, I have a feeling. So, Jim, any other questions before we start wrapping this up? Anybody have anything you want us to test while we have everything plugged in? I mean, I have cords everywhere in my office, so let us know if you want us to test anything or talk about anything, or ask Michelle, as we've got her here, as we kind of wrap things up, any questions you have about how microphones, what one's better than the other. Jim, do you have any other questions?
I mean, other than, I know you're going to be now at Podcast Movement, are there any other shows that Heil's going to be at before then?
Nothing before then, but I will also be at She Podcasts in October.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So make sure if you are going to podcast, let us know in the comments if you're going to go to Podcast Movement, and make sure you stop by the Heil booth and try out some of these mics yourself, because that's the thing that makes a big difference is when you finally can put one headsets on and talk into a mic. You're like, oh my gosh, that sounds really cool. Jonathan goes, do you have any Heil t-shirts in V-neck? So we've got people. So
no, just the standard.
They want the Heil swag. So
yeah. I think it would look weird. It would be like a V-neck into the V of the logo. Yeah. I don't know.
So Shannon goes,
I think that's why I've never done it.
Shannon says he wants an autograph from all of us, but he would rather have multiple selfies. So thank you, Shannon. You're your biggest fan. So anyway, thank you, Michelle, so much for being here. Thank you for answering all the questions. Where can people find you if they want to get a hold of you? I've been putting up heilsound.com, but where would they want to, if they want to contact you about some questions?
Yeah, I mean, you can reach out through social media. We're always on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. You can find us there. You can also just email us, info@heilsound.com, and somebody will get right back to you. We have great support staff here that can answer lots of questions, no matter how technical. Pretty much everybody that works here is either a musician or a podcaster or a ham radio person. Like, we're all the things that we do here. So it's kind of fun. You know, you can find somebody that's sort of the sales manager's a drummer. So you got drum questions, he can answer them.
And Jim, where can people find out all things Jim Fuse with an S?
Dealcasters.live.shop, but if you want to connect directly with me, go to linkedin.com. Jim Fuse is probably the best place to connect with me, but don't spam me in the connection request asking for sales or things like that, or I'll just ignore you.
And Jim, you talked about people training for marathons earlier. Jim is actually training for a marathon, and I want to see him in his stilettos going out there and running.
That will never happen because I wouldn't be able to run. I wouldn't be able to run 20 feet in stilettos, let alone 26 miles.
Yeah.
Well, Michelle, thank you. Jim, thank you. Jonathan and Deb and everybody who's in the comments and Shannon over on Amazon Line. Thank you guys so much for watching and your questions. Make sure that any of these mics that you see down below in the carousel, you check them out because Heil Sound really does make some awesome microphones. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.